Hey, everybody. Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. I'm John Martin.
And I'm Dean Reverman.
Dean, did you know that the term robot comes from a Czech word that means forced labor?
Whoa, no, I did not know that. Wow, that's a way to start off this one.
That was actually
robot.
It was actually created by a man named Carl Capek, who was like an ancestor of my English teacher from high school.
What?
Yeah.
You're blowing my mind right now. So you're
cool
connected
story.
to the word
I guess in a
somehow?
very indirect, 50 degrees away kind of way, but sure.
I'm going to go 6 degrees
right,
of separation with that, yeah.
Now, I think that idea was originally created with androids in mind.
Yeah.
A humanoid
I see,
machine that's
I see.
designed to do
Got
work
it.
for us.
Right.
Hopefully when the AI-enabled robots of the future look back into our history, they don't decide that's a reason to end humanity. Wait a minute, what did you guys think we were? But we, in our industry, and in BlueStar and in this channel, we tend to think of robotics as complementary to augment human labor, improve efficiencies, all that kind of stuff.
Correct.
But what does that mean
Fill
for
gaps.
Yeah, exactly. But what does that really mean for our channel, for our VARs? If you're watching on video, you might notice we have a guest in the studio with us today, Juan Higueros from Bear Robotics. He's going to be talking to us a little bit about what's happening out there, what's going on in the market, where are robots right now, what's the state of things. Bear's specialty in hospitality robotics. We're going to talk a little bit about what's going on there in particular, how these robots are helping folks out. We're going to get into what it looks like to deploy one of these solutions and how VARs fit into that picture.
How the heck do they do it?
Yeah. And if you're still a skeptic for some reason, Juan's going to make you see the light.
Yes.
Come to your senses about robotics in this industry.
There you go.
Lots of fun stuff to talk about today. Our usual value to the VAR and what's TEConnecting with us as well. It's time to plug in and get connected.
Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. It's time to get connected.
All right, as I mentioned, our guest today is Juan Higueros. He is the COO and co-founder of Bear Robotics. Thank you so much for joining us, Juan. We appreciate having you. We've been wanting to talk about robotics for a little while now, and obviously it's been something we've been bringing into the BlueStar ecosphere for a while. So tell us a little about your background and how did you get into robots? What drew you to the market?
Well, first, thanks to the both of you for having me. Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be here at your headquarters as well. How I got into robotics, really interesting story. We have a really crazy Silicon Valley story.
Those are the best kinds.
It's really interesting. So our other co-founder, who he's our CEO, he has a PhD in computer science, was working at Google for a number of years. Nice cush job. And then he made a right turn and decided to buy a restaurant of his own. And that's how we actually got started. He decided to really do it as a passion project, which ended up turning out to be like throwing him into the lion's den, essentially. So we thought about it like, wow, he saw how tough it was to really run a restaurant, which is super difficult. These small business owners are really out there just grinding and struggling. And so we thought about, wow, does it really have to be this way for the industry? So back in the day, we built this prototype to run in his restaurant, which was a live situation. And it was funny because this thing was janky as can be.
Of course.
And hundreds and hundreds of hours. And we ran it in his restaurant in a live situation for like an entire year. And tried and failed. And eventually, voila, it actually worked. Because what was happening what was interesting is, he and I actually met. It was serendipity because one of my friends from grad school had invited me to an event where in Silicon Valley you have these little huddles where you present on a concept that you're thinking of, and he happened to sit next to me. He had a piece of paper. He's like, I've got this concept, I'm thinking about it, and I've got a restaurant over in Milpitas, California, and I'm thinking about doing this. And I go, well, you've got a computer science background. I think I can help with the other parts of it. So we ran it there and really thought about like, wow, we could see that even our own service staff was just literally on busy shifts or really, they were killing themselves. And so we thought about how can we make a self-driving robot that can kind of do some of the things the mundane things that they have to do, like running food or taking dishes back to the back for the back area.
Yeah.
And so after a year of running this, it actually finally worked. And that really is what led to kind of us kind of developing and building this company called Bear Robotics. And here we are, like, that was, he quit his job back in 2015. So here we are now, like several years later, and we've put these self-driving robots in many thousands of locations now across the world. And it's been a fascinating ride, just a joy because we built it from scratch. It's a true grassroots situation that we did it because we started from the core, which is knowing what service and hospitality is all about. And then at the end, now we see ourselves hopefully deploying a line of robots for the hospitality space, because it's a really challenging situation now with a lot of labor shortages. In the U.S. in general, you'll see rising labor costs in many, many different states. In California, we actually are headquartered in Silicon Valley, but we see obviously a lot of rising labor costs. Minimum wages are going up in a lot of states. And so a lot of these small business owners are just struggling to make it, right? And so anything that we can bring in to make things easier, which is kind of what our concept was, is kind of how we got here.
That's awesome. Cool. So, do you still have the OG janky robot? Does it still exist?
We have the prototype that actually we built right after that, and that's sitting in our little mini museum that we have at our headquarters. We actually show like an evolution of our products, because the very first prototype that we built after that was something that we actually used in not only his restaurant after that, but also what we took to a few places in or around Silicon Valley to really showcase to some other folks that actually could use it. And by chance, I happened to go to this. It was this conference in Las Vegas, and this guy that I met, same thing that I met. Just I was walking over to the hotel where they were having the conference, and this guy was from Boston, and he's like, "So we're having," and I'd gone to school back there, and so he's like, "Hey, we're having a little private dinner." And I happened to sit next to the owner of this very well-known pizzeria in the Bay Area. He and his wife, we talked for like an hour and a half. And he's like, "So what are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm like, well, we're going to try to put robots in restaurants." And he's like, "Really?" And so he had this pizzeria that had like 10 or 11 locations, but they provide the pizzas to like the San Francisco Giants and 49ers. So they're very well known. He's like, "Why don't you just try and come over and put it in my place?" And I was like, "Great, thank you."
Yes,
and
we will try that.
The very first one that we went to was a place in San Mateo, and it had really, really bumpy floors. We're like, crap, this is not going to make it. And then finally he said, "You know what? I've got other locations," because it was really early days. And so we ended up putting the first one in Mountain View. And from there, it was really interesting because he's the type of owner, and we were talking about this earlier, where he treats his employees like gold. He has servers that have been with him for 7, 10, 14, 15 years. And so they're really, for a period of like 18 months, we ran and tested at his location, and they gave us the absolute best feedback. I mean, to really grow and develop the product. And so from that is really kind of how we got our start. And we really learned how to really make it so that it could be a product that could truly help the serving staff, because when they're given like a lot more time to spend more customer facing, we saw this in our own restaurant. We actually ran a study like where we put pedometers on our servers, and they were walking a lot. They were walking like upwards of like 4 miles on a busy shift.
I believe it.
And so same thing here, where we could see that you give them additional time. You give them like even like 30 seconds or a minute more, or even 2 minutes more, to not have to go run back and forth constantly. We saw, I measured this too, and it was interesting, like the tip incomes for our staff went up by a lot. They went up like 25 or 30% over the course of an entire year. So that was impressive to see. And then usually what happens is when you have happy staff, they're providing that better customer service. You get repeat customers coming back. So it's a nice trifecta. So the staff that you have are really engaged, providing more value-added things.
Right.
People come back to you. The owner wins out too. So, and the guest service and the kind of the overall guest satisfaction improves. So when you hit that trifecta, it's pretty impressive, because that's what restaurateurs are really looking for. And they get that kind of repeat business, and they went out, they get hopefully improved revenues, improved margins, and that's really helpful. So that was our like voila moment.
Right.
And so we thought, okay, let's see if we can make a true business out of this. So our first kind of investment came from a company over in Japan called SoftBank. They're very well known over there. They're a big investor, but also they do a lot of. They have a division that they actually sell robots, and so our first push was into the Japanese market, and that's how we kind of got our start. And then next thing you know, we started in Japan, and went to Korea, and then eventually everything that happens in Asia sometimes kind of moves its way over to the U.S. And so now we've got robots in almost all the 50 states here in the U.S. We're about like 46 or 48 states now. So there's robots out in the wild now, and they're out there and doing a lot of things to kind of hopefully help, really help shape the future of work for the restaurant industry and the hospitality industry in general.
That's amazing.
That's pretty cool.
I love those tech stories to start with. Hey, I'm working in this industry. I think there's a better way we could be doing things. I think tech could enable that. I'm going to do it.
That's what we did.
Those are some of my favorite stories. I love
That's what we did. It's really that's our unique story, because it's not like we're not like other tech companies where we thought, okay, we have a solution to a problem that we don't even know. We actually lived and breathed the entire problem from the ground up. And realistically, when we saw it work, when we also, it's an issue that we saw, wow, this is an issue not only for the industry throughout the U.S., but wow, I mean, when you go to these other countries, they too are suffering from significant labor shortages. And when you go to these other countries like Japan and Korea, their populations are actually, the younger population is not going to necessarily replace what the older generation is actually doing. And so robotics are essentially coming in to actually help shape what will be essentially for a lot of these, especially in the service industry.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, so let's talk a little bit about the overall market here. You know, people have been saying the robots are coming for years. And I think a lot of folks have been rolling their eyes about like, yeah, sure. But they're already obviously here in some sectors. They're getting closer in others. There's a few statistics I wanted to throw out here. BCC Research says that this is going to be a $165.2 billion market by 2029. Assembly Magazine says right now that there are 151 robots per 100,000 workers today. And this is actually a stat from 2021 that I imagine is even higher today, but over 90,000 robots are in the food and beverage industry. So when you look at stuff like that, and does that kind of, does that match up with what you're seeing in the market? What is happening in your opinion? You know, where are we right now with robots, and where do you see us moving over the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years or so?
The robots are coming, huh? Well, I think
that's not a bad thing. Yeah,
I think it's safe to say that the robots are here.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know, I look at that from the perspective of what we're doing, but we also know a lot of robotics companies that we're very friendly with that are doing things in other industries. And from our perspective, certainly they're helping reshape not only restaurants, but anything within the service and hospitality space, whether it's hotels. The onslaught of ghost kitchens too has really been really interesting to see. I think that even in senior living communities, believe it or not, we started in restaurants and then we somehow, some way ended up in senior living communities because they have an interesting situation where they have a lower pool of people that they can actually hire.
Right.
I always say, like in a restaurant, it's pretty funny. You can have like 10 felonies and get hired, but in some of these senior living communities, some of them are actually higher end communities. They do background checks, they do all kinds of things, and so their labor pool is super limited.
Right.
And so we're even in situations like that. But when you look at other places, I think that we've certainly seen it. I mean, I was in your warehouse here at the BlueStar headquarters. Interesting to see that you've deployed great robotics here, and obviously they're helping make your order fulfillment so much more efficient. Mm-hmm. I think you're going to start to see things even more in factories too. We're going to play in this space as well. We're going to be introducing a new product called Cardi, and really helping with. There's a lot of movement within factories that can, essentially be a lot more efficient and also reduce human error. And so that's going to be interesting. And you'll see them in a lot of industries, even in places like retail for inventory management, in agriculture. You see them even harvesting and sorting things. But one unique thing that I saw recently is in healthcare. I mean, in hospitals, sometimes you'll see robots now, and I think this is going to continue to grow, is really taking, whether it's supplies or even stuff from the pharmacy, for example. Some of those hallways are like the length of football fields. It's crazy. They're super long. And so when I've seen robots being deployed in those, and I do think that's going to be really, really helpful because, you take that time. I mean, it really helps nurses and doctors and staff not have to take that time to go literally patrol an entire city block just to deliver something. So in that care, and that, I think that gives them time to really focus more on patient care and that kind of thing. So I do think the onslaught of robots is definitely here, and I think they're going to continue to improve the overall collaboration that happens directly with the staff, essentially. But they're not necessarily going to replace things, like you said. It's really going to be more of a true collaboration between what we do versus what robots do, and they'll take on the mundane, and that's going to be really, really cool to see, because then humans will be allowed to do what humans are best at, which is be creative and provide just more value, I guess.
Yeah. Can we dive a little, since you're a manufacturer, I'm curious on your take on what some of the drivers of why robots are starting to get a run. Is it AI, the ability for, and to determine those? Is it sensor technology that has gotten better? Is it compute power that's gotten better to enable it? Is it all three of those? Is it something else? I kind of sit back and it's like, well, why? Robotic arms have been around for a little while and stuff like that. But what is your take on why we're starting to see some of these things now come to fruition?
Definitively. I mean, all of that has improved, even from our inception to what we see now in terms of our robots are equipped with really, really kind of advanced navigation, and we have LiDAR, we have 3D cameras, and the ability that we've seen, the improvement of them to navigate and also really be able to kind of detect their environment, detect obstacles has significantly improved, just even in the last 5 years. Yeah. The onslaught of AI is going to be truly, truly, truly remarkable, because it's going to really, really allow for so many impressive new things to come. We sometimes get asked, can your robots take orders when they come to the table? Not yet.
But I could see that happening, yeah.
Not yet, but it could happen in the near future.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think all these things are very, very possible with what you've seen. Remember, like the AI revolution really is in it's in the bottom of the first inning. Yeah, we have a long way to go. I mean, the next 20 years are going to be really, really just impressive to see it with everything that's going to happen, because it's going to reshape what you do in your everyday life in so many different ways. Not only with robotics, which will be really, really significant, but I do think in every other industry for sure.
Yeah. Interesting.
Definitely. I like the idea that we're talking about something that this is no longer a maybe thing. This isn't it might happen. We might get robotics. It might come along at some point. It's happening. It's here. I'll give you just one simple concrete example, because people I think are encountering these on a regular basis now. I was my son and I were at his soccer game over the weekend. We were on our way off the field heading back to the car, and there was like a robot puttering around in one of the fields, and I thought it was just somebody just brought I don't know, some kind of a project or something we're playing around. Then I realized it's painting the lines. It's out there in the field painting lines.
Get out of
and there's
town.
Lots of people all around too. It's not like they were doing this when it was empty. There's lots of people out there. It's out there definitely painting the lines, maneuvering around folks that were out there. I was like, there you go. Practical example that's already in place that people are seeing in their everyday lives.
Yeah, there's a company that we are very friendly with that's out of the Bay Area that's doing very similar things in construction. So these robots actually help do the painting of the lines on construction sites, and it's proven to be a really, really good use case, even in industry like construction as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, so let's talk about your specialty, which is those hospitality robots, obviously. And I know that's starting to branch out, as you mentioned, the senior living market. There's places in retail, entertainment, obviously too. Tell us more a little bit about that opportunity in the hospitality industry. Some of those adjoining industries. What service robots? What can they and can they not do just yet? You mentioned like order taking's not there yet, but there's a lot of other cool stuff that you guys can do so far.
Yeah, service robots in the hospitality industry, I think it's just a match made in heaven, because in the service and hospitality industry now, our robots certainly are well equipped to do a lot of the things like food running, drink running. They help with busing. They even do hosting. They can greet you at the very front of a restaurant and take you to your table and provide the daily specials or promotions and things like that. All of that's already in place, and we certainly do that now. What's been interesting in some of the adjacent industries that we've been in, I mentioned ghost kitchens. That's been a really, really that's been surging over the last 4 or 5 years. And a lot of that has to do with the emergence of the DoorDashes of the world, the Uber Eats of the world, the Grubhubs.
Because those ghost kitchens are just strictly handing out delivery orders.
That's what they are. And so when you go to them, it's fascinating. It's actually the size sometimes of a warehouse. And you have sometimes 30, 40, 50 kitchens in just one place. So when you order that pizza from DoorDash, it may not be made directly at your pizza place, but it's being made at this ghost kitchen. So in the past, what would happen is people would be tasked to literally, these are very, very fast-paced environments. And so people will be tasked to go run back there to go get an order as it's being prepared. Because remember, these DoorDash drivers are coming in to pick it up and they have to go. All that has been completely reversed. And now our robots are actually doing all those logistics. So they get pinged by the central system to go pick up those orders and they bring it up right when the order is essentially ready, right up to the front processing station where they're placed in a cubby hole and the driver comes in, takes it and goes. And they can make that delivery within their allotted time frame because they do need to make those deliveries, especially if it's fresh food. It needs to be there within a certain time frame so that it's still as tasty, so you want to reorder it. In senior living communities, it's been really fascinating because we're there and not only helping with meal service, but then we're doing other things too, other daily tasks like we help deliver mail, we help deliver FedEx packages, Amazon packages to the residents. So unique things that you would have never imagined, but we're actually doing that as well. So it's pretty interesting to see that. But you're right. I mean, there are limitations as to what we can and cannot do because the robots that we provide are really meant for indoor use. We do work a little bit in, I guess, covered patios, but our robots, when they get hit with direct sunlight, it really can confuse them. And so that's why they're really limited to just maybe indoors, but it's still a plentiful big market to actually go out and get. And that's really some of the limitations. We sometimes get asked, like you said, can they take orders? Not yet, but I mean, we certainly integrate directly with POS systems and it makes things easier to really maneuver kind of the exact time when a food is ready. So a robot will go pick it up, bring it out to you, so you're not necessarily waiting the 20 minutes. You're like waving down to a server, where's my food, or I need a drink, that kind of thing. And so that's pretty interesting. But there's other things that are out there right now that we've seen already integrated. Sometimes there's QR codes that are actually placed on our robots sometimes. So folks will order directly from their mobile phone. And if it's an unstructured environment like food halls and everything like that, when that's done, we can actually essentially see where you're seated. So we can bring it out directly out to you so somebody doesn't have to do that task anymore. And we use even other things like we use these, I don't know if you've ever been to like a Panera Bread, but you get these pucks. And when you order and you can go sit down anywhere, then we can see obviously where you're seated. So all of those things are in place right now as workarounds, but over time I think certainly that will continue to improve and all these advancements will be in the very near future.
That's pretty cool. Food hall was one that I was going to bring up. You know, like it's a genius. I mean, I can see the application there. How about back of house, Juan? A lot of what we've been talking about is front of house, and I worked in a pizzeria for 8 years, and so I'm trying to think of the back of house, and it can be a crowded space and things of that nature, but are there opportunities there as well that you're investigating? Or?
Yeah, the one opportunity I think recently that I was really intrigued by, there's a company in San Francisco, and they're doing some really cool things with more of the larger chains, but they're really trying to automate the full dishwashing. Dishwashers are... It's one of the toughest roles to have in the back of the house, and it's really, really difficult. But you're faced with like a lot of moisture, a lot of heat, having to deal with stacks of dishes, literally up to the roof, and it's a tough job. And there's a way to utilize arms and actually computer vision to actually literally take an entire plate of dirty dishes, wipe them off, and put them essentially onto a commercial dishwasher, get it run, and then pick them up and actually dry them off. And there's some really good opportunities there. You're right, it is tight. So what they've done is they've made it nice and compact. And those are really, really cool things to see, especially in the back of house, because there are some things that are already automated with the way the ovens work, and they're all AI and automated and kind of cooking that and everything like that. But that's a really cool opportunity, I think, for some of these chains that have the need for that, because it's a tough job to to do, and it's a tough job to hire, and actually it turns over quite a lot as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Back to the labor issue.
You used to work in a pizzeria. I love it.
Oh yeah,
I love it.
Yeah.
I can see you flipping.
Oh, yes, sir.
Wait a minute. I think we had you try that on the episode of the cooking show at one point.
It didn't work out so well.
Didn't go so well. Yeah.
I had frozen doughs back in the day, so but I can whip sauce like anybody.
Yeah, there you go. Juan, you had sent over to me a couple of days ago some interesting stats about like the steps that are saved in all these different industries and the weight that your robots have been carrying over time, deliveries made. And we're talking like in the millions and billions of steps saved, deliveries that are made. Just again, and I'm sure like while you're in a lot of places, your deployment is still a fraction of the amount of restaurants and industries that are out there. Yeah,
we're literally just at the cusp of really doing the major things, because it's still, like I said, in our view, it's still the bottom of the first inning. It's interesting when these operators see that our robots have carried, oh my God, they carried tens of thousands of pounds on our behalf, so our staff did not have to do that this month, or thousands. It's pretty interesting. And even like they traveled so many miles to do all of these things, and wow, people used to have to do that.
Yeah.
And that's really, really interesting. So it's very, very cool that we actually can measure all of that and provide that. We provide that to customers on a daily basis, how many deliveries they've made, how much weight they've carried, and really it allows them to see the ROI immediately.
Right.
And so that's really, really cool. And that's something that we've implemented over the last couple of years, because it's something that you literally can see working every day, and it's truly providing value.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just also like, especially I think in restaurants, like the need for turnover is so desperate. Like you're getting your money based on how many people you get in the door every night and fed, and then back out the door for other people to come back in the door and do the same thing over and over again.
And it's relentless.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's absolutely relentless. And they're trying to do that as fast and efficient as possible. But if you're getting slowed down with, this person can't bring this order because they're too busy over getting these new folks at the door and bringing them to their table and taking their drink order. And then they had to go to the back and put that order in, and then they got to come deliver those drinks. Meanwhile, there's 6 plates of food that have been sitting out there waiting for someone to take to a table, and just bringing a check. Just all that kind of little stuff that over time starts adding up, so that your average person, or average, let's say family or whoever it is that's going in there to sit down and eat, is probably spending an extra 15 to maybe even 30 minutes of time in that restaurant just because they're waiting on what the staff can do. And there's only so much the staff can actually do. Imagine that, that's the kind of thing I think is a great story to tell. It's like, hey, imagine if you could put that much more time back into bringing more people in, and maybe you turn over 15 more tables a night than you do on a normal night. How much more revenue would that bring in?
It's a great example. I mean, I've seen situations, we've all been in these situations where you get to a restaurant that's busy on a Friday night, and as I said, we saw this, we lived it, we breathed it, and we saw what a server really has to go through. Sometimes they'll have, like you said, 7 tasks to do at one time. But imagine the fact that now we have these call me buttons. You put them underneath the table. You call the robot to you. You clear that table. You turn it faster. You literally put all the dirty dishes onto our robot. The robot then goes and takes it to the dishwasher. You turn that table quickly. Bring the next set of guests, and it's turned in a matter of minutes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Instead of the server having to do all of that, carry 30, 40, 50 pounds of dirty dishes into the back, wait, and then the people are literally waiting for them to be seated. That level of efficiency is kind of what we're talking about. And the future of what this industry will really, really see is that efficiency over a period of time. The future of work will eventually be just much, much better.
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk about the actual deployment of these solutions. And what that looks like when someone's like, hey, I like what I'm seeing here. I think you guys have what I need for my business. I'm ready to go. I want to deploy one of these. What does that look like? And where do VARs fit into that, more importantly? Because obviously, our VAR audience is thinking like, all right, this sounds good. What does that mean to me? How do I fit into that process? What should I expect after the sale? Where, what part do I have in this whole process?
Yeah, I look at it from the perspective of the way we look at deployments is we want to make it as easy and user-friendly as possible. And that's one thing that significantly has improved for us over the years, is that as I mentioned earlier, our robots they have these very, very I would say, advanced capabilities with the sensors, and that we have LiDAR that helps us really allow the robot to map the environment and get it essentially able to kind of detect the obstacles that it needs to. But once it's set up, we have a cloud management system where a lot of the details around how they're deployed is actually done, and it's all centrally done that way. And what's interesting for us is that we can even do it in a very, very easy way. It can be set up basically the same day, running that same morning. And in multi-robot environments, what we're seeing now is restaurants are using sometimes more than just one or two. Mm-hmm. We have one restaurant in Korea, and I do think I need to call the Guinness World Record. This is an interesting story. There's a guy that he's got this great place. It's actually close to North Korea, actually. It's in a very rural area, but this happens a lot where he built this place and it's very, very popular. I think he makes like some of the most delicious eel, I think, that there's out there apparently. So he had a really bad situation in terms of being able to actually hire people. And so he started with like 15 robots and he's up to like 40 in one.
Wow.
But I think the great benefit of having it be user-friendly is that from the perspective of like when you actually set them up, there's very little intervention that's needed after the fact. Mm-hmm. We even have now introduced docking stations, and so now they can charge on their own. But what's good for from the perspective of a VAR is that realistically, it's a situation where there's it's easy to set up, and also the what we provide is really a lot of support and a lot of the things that are needed to kind of bring it up. But I think from a VAR's perspective too, I think we price them very competitively, and it really gives them that additional offering to provide to their end clients. And VARs for us are really, really critical. I mean, we have really tried to do this so that they have the infrastructure, they have those like local knowledge and the close customer relationships that we don't. I mean, as a robotics manufacturer, our goal is just to provide like the cutting edge technology for some of these industries. We saw obviously that's a need in the service and hospitality space, hopefully eventually in the logistics space, but they have like those close relationships. They know what their customers are really, really looking for, right. those value-added solutions, or even like improved, like maybe to grow their portfolio. But combining that is really what we want to do, is because we're a Silicon Valley company that's trying to provide the best tech out there. But I think the VARs are really the ones that can really help scale and really bring robots to regions across the world, or especially all the VARs within the BlueStar community that are not only throughout the United States, but all over Europe and even Africa. I mean, that's really that's where I think VARs have the great opportunity to actually bring this technology directly to their end customers and provide that kind of solutions-based solution that they need for what they're looking for the long term.
Yeah. When I put my reseller hat on, I'm going to hover on the easy to set up. I think you've done a good job. I've witnessed how easy these are to set up. Dude, it's easy. You say it takes a morning, I'm going to challenge you on that. Well, from what I saw, it took minutes, but I know you don't want to make these wild claims like I am on your behalf. But it's so my point is that we have a reseller community that they're a little hesitant, right? It's like, well, maybe the technology's not there. In this use case, the technology is there. I mean, it's the technology with the LiDAR, everything that Juan's been talking about. This is a well-oiled, purpose-built device, for the environment.
Thanks, Dean.
There you go. And easy to set up. So now it's just everything, where I would be at is, okay, who do I have? Who are my customers that might be a good use case for this? And start dipping your toe into this. Because if you're going to wait around for the technology to be, quote unquote, a little bit better or whatever, maybe that's a hassle to set, where I think we're there. And now it's just a matter of leveraging some of these relationships and stuff like that. Let's dive a little bit into, what after it's installed and set up, is there a room for the reseller to participate in ongoing, shall I say, maintenance and or because I know everything's speaking to a cloud. Is there a platform, that they're getting involved in?
I do think that there's the great thing for robotics, when it was first introduced into the market, I would say a few years ago, The bigger thing that most robotics companies are trying to do now is really kind of build that subscription model and recurring model. And that's really where the big benefit is, because there's the upfront kind of deployment, but there's a lot of potential for ongoing maintenance, ongoing support, and all those things over longer periods of time, because these robots will be in some of these locations for years. And so you want to have that recurring support model there for the VARs to really be able to participate in that. And that's where I think there's really, really good benefit, because it's not just a one-time sale. It can actually be a complete kind of sale and support for whether it's anything that's needed on, whether it's troubleshooting, whether it's any additional maintenance support that folks may ask for, or any expansions and things like that. So that's where I think there's good benefit, not only for the short term, but also for the longer term with these solutions.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you're still relying on the VARs to be the contact for these folks to reach out to, if they've got questions, they've got needs, and then they can bring you in as necessary. But at the end, we're still leaving you with that relationship. Like, hey, you're the VAR, you have that relationship, you are still helping them out with all the other aspects of their tech world. But then they can bring you in to supplement and help out as needed with getting up and running.
We do our best to really try to support VARs in terms of really trying to provide that. We want to empower and educate them so they can go out and really, really try to promote our product. We look at it as a very, very collaborative situation, because we are always going to be there to provide that additional support, even the additional things that they need to be successful, whether it's all the sales kits, whether it's the brochures, the success stories, the ROI calculators, all of that we've built in because it helps them succeed. And that's really where we've built that up essentially to make them ready to really, truly sell. And really, if they need to actually tailor their presentations, I know we have a portal directly with BlueStar to actually allow them to download this and really be able to go out and customize their sales pitches essentially. So all of that's really there. And we've really tried to promote a lot of different things. We've really tried to put a partner portal in place so like the VARs can go in and register their deals and all this other stuff. And eventually our goal is to, we want to eventually get to a point where we have a nice community of folks that we can, because we're a super transparent company. Actually, we work with our VARs with day to day, and even on Slack channels, giving us all the feedback that they're seeing on product performance, on insights they're seeing in the market, and build that back into the product. And hopefully, our product line will continue to evolve, and their feedback is going to be super critical.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so let's talk to those skeptics still. Dean kind of referenced that some of the folks might be like, I'm not sure if we fit in still. I'm not sure where we belong. I don't know if this is part of my portfolio that makes any sense. I don't even know if this really fits in what the channel model's like. How do you address that hesitance? What do you have to say to folks that are still like, I don't know if this is where I want to be. I don't know if this really is something that matters to our channel when I'm out there selling barcode scanners and point of sale systems. What do you have to say to those?
It's an interesting question. I think that we're already seeing it, as we talked about earlier, certainly transform a lot of different industries. In the service and hospitality space, obviously, we're seeing them transform restaurants and hotels and all these other industries the sectors that we talked about. But it's interesting when you look back on history. The folks that chose not to adapt to the innovations that were shaping industries, we could look at cloud computing, we could look at the rise of e-commerce like we were talking about earlier, or even the digital transformation that we've seen. We use our phones for practically everything now. Really, it's interesting where you will have two sides, okay? Some folks that are probably timid, and some folks that are really, really going to lead the charge and be. And so, in the past, what we've seen from history, obviously, is the folks that are willing to embrace and lead. They're the ones that actually succeed. Right. So you're either going to be playing catch up, or you may lose out. There's actually probably a cemetery out there of companies that chose not to adapt to things, so you have a choice, obviously, to really, really embrace it, because it's really transformative, and it's going to reshape not only the hospitality industry but a lot of industries. And so there's that choice essentially, and I do think that this is kind of the next big push. Obviously, AI and robotics will essentially be at the forefront for what's to come.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's kind of like a simple equation. You've got labor issues, you've got efficiency demands that comes out of hospitality that is well documented, and you have a solution now in robotics that is actually maturing, I would say, faster than people may realize. And so there's your equation. Why wouldn't you start a practice and leverage your relationships to get in it? If your desire is to be complementary in all the tech stack that is happening, quote unquote, in restaurant or in store, you got to start getting involved in it. And I think you're right, Juan. You're either going to be I don't even know that I guess you would be an early adapter here, but I'm just so convinced that the technology has really gotten to a point now where it needs to go, right? We need to start implementing and putting these in place. I agree.
I mean, some of these, some of the VARs obviously they know that their end customers are suffering from this, whether it's labor shortages, all those challenges. And when they see that, obviously there's a solution now that's readily available to come in and actually provide that option to really offset what's happening in situations where you've got labor shortages or there's all these rising labor costs where, like I mentioned earlier, like some of these small business owners, they kind of need this because you see them with help wanted signs out there, and sometimes these small business owners will put out an ad and 50 people will respond, but one person will show up and they'll have to spend the time and maybe not the right person. So now I think combining with robotics and having a labor model that can actually kind of be balanced, and that insurance policy I think is really something that will benefit them for the long run.
Yeah. This is one of those things that feels kind of like, when the ISV market kind of took off, where I think probably a lot of VARs at that point too looked at it was like, I don't know that I don't necessarily want to sell software. Right. I'm like, I just sell the hardware. Yeah. I'm good. I know what I'm doing. I can sell a gadget, and then you want software, go find
go find it your own. Yeah.
I think the same way that has obviously shifted, and now there's an understanding like, well, I'm not going to do anything if I don't have a software partner to help me out or backing me up, or I'm not selling that stuff. I have a feeling it's kind of where this is going to be going. At some point, there's going to be if I'm not, at least touching the robotics market, or at least acknowledging that it's out there and willing to help out with, starting those conversations and making some introductions, then you might be that company gets left behind, left in the dust.
Yep.
So,
True.
All right, well, good stuff. Well, hey, we'll wrap up here in a moment and let Juan talk a little bit more about how Bear is coming out there and actually going to help you go out and find and win business. But first, as always, we want to thank all of our sponsors here on the TEConnect podcast. We appreciate everyone that supports the show.
Yes.
Hey, if you like the show, there's a lot of different things you can do to show your appreciation. Again, I see the numbers every week. I know there's a lot of folks watching and downloading, but I don't hear from a lot of you. Yes. So simple things you can do. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can make sure you subscribe to the show. Share it with someone else. If there's anyone else that you think would benefit, hey, send this over to them and say, hey, you should subscribe to these guys. You should listen to them. Leave us comments. If you're watching on YouTube, there's a comment section down below. They need to be more than just King Sev from our Canadian.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Comments.
That's
Sev,
right.
we love you. We love your comments. We appreciate it. But I want to see more of those. I want to see those comments left down below there for us. Reach out to us at any time. And also share your ideas.
Yes, if they got an
show.
idea. Yeah.
We're coming up on the end of 2024 here. That means Dean and I got to start thinking about what we're going to do for a new year, new episodes, new tacts and pathways we're going to run down. But that doesn't work if we don't hear from you and what you want to hear about on the show. So please reach out to us. Let us know.
And if they give us an idea, they get a free robot. I'm kidding.
I mean, I don't know. Juan, you want to send some free robots so we can send to our listeners?
Absolutely.
Oh, wow. No.
Absolutely.
You get a free T-shirt. That's what you get. Let's just be clear.
It'll be one of those like little cheap $10 robots you order off of Amazon, that beeps and boops a few times before it dies. But hey, yes, we'll send you a free TEConnect podcast T-shirt just for sending an idea into us. We love to get those ideas, and even if we don't use it on the show, and if we do use it on the show, we'll shout you out and let let people know that you recommended this and suggested the topic. And of course, as always, if you want to reach out and find us, you can find us online at BlueStar's various social media sites, on LinkedIn, and also email us TEConnect@BlueStarInc.com. All right, let's wrap up as always with a little value to the VAR.
Yes.
So again, I feel like most of this conversation has been pretty easy to understand why VAR should get involved in this, why there's an opportunity, where those opportunities are. But talk to us about what Bear in particular is bringing into the market. Like, how are you going to help VARs go out there, find opportunities to win business, bring these robots to market, and make it easy for them to go out and sell this alongside what they're already doing?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, we've had the opportunity now to deploy robots across the U.S. and actually in other regions across the globe. So we have a lot of really good user success stories. And we've been able to build a really good infrastructure of all the collateral that's really going to help VARs actually go out there and actually provide, whether it's the sales collateral, the brochures. Also, I mentioned earlier, we've developed recently an ROI calculator that really allows them, when they're actually making their pitches, to truly see the value of what the robots can bring when they actually bring them in. We've also done some other things in terms of like really trying to make it as collaborative as possible, whether it's, I mentioned earlier, the partner portal that we try to build in so that folks can actually register their leads, and really we really try to be as collaborative as possible, because we have webinars, we have our field engineers actually are very hands-on, so we do everything from the upfront training, the technical training. We have an online ticketing system. We have a hotline, obviously, for any additional support. So we have tried to really build a very collaborative effort, so that, like I mentioned, we really want to make sure that VARs are truly educated and empowered to really promote our product. And lastly, we are very competitively priced. And I think that the reason for that is we want to make sure that the VARs are set up for success, and not only obtaining their margins, but also being able to actually take their margins and actually provide that solutions-centric, place for them to bring to their customers. Right. And so it's a win-win situation. We look at it from the perspective of like, this is a great way to really, truly be able to scale, because I mentioned earlier, they have the local knowledge, they have that customer base, those relationships, and we want to provide the best product for them. When we do truly feel like we have the best service robots out there, especially for this space. And lastly, I mean, we're a super collaborative company. I mean, we try to get as many insights as possible from our partners. And as we evolve, a lot of it will come directly from folks like VARs that will actually help us provide like the best additional products that we need to put out there for them.
Awesome.
I'd like to add in there a little bit, because we've been working with Juan and Bear for over a year now. The word I'll throw out is legit. They're legit. And that means something to a reseller, right? If you put on your reseller hat, you're wondering, well, what partners do I work with and stuff like that. Juan just outlined everything. I'm gonna add on to that. Support is critical. When you're a reseller and you're starting to get into an industry, they've got the support infrastructure in place. It's mature. You've got employees. I'm not going to hold you up, but I'm sure you've got tenured employees that have been around for a couple years or years. I mean, that's so critical. So, what we love about Bear is they're legit. I mean, when we walk into a room with them, we have every confidence that they're going to be able to provide the reseller community the tools they need, the product that's awesome, the support pre-sale, post-sale, doesn't matter. They're collaborative, as he said. So there's my word for you. Yeah. Legit.
Thanks, Dean.
There you go. No, unpaid.
Unpaid sponsorship there. Yeah.
Today, Dean gets a free robot.
Just a T-shirt. That's all I want. Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Too funny.
Get one of those sweet Bear Robotics vests that you got there. Dean wears a lot of vests. He'll be happy with that.
Dean, you should move to Silicon Valley. There's a lot of guys with vests out there.
Fair.
I'll go too. We can do the podcast out there.
There you go.
Fine.
Hey, absolutely. Better weather.
Well, all right. Hey, if you do want to learn more about Bear Robotics, go to bearrobotics.ai. It's BEAR robotics.ai. I'll drop some links in the show notes of all the stuff we've been talking about, so you can get a little more feel for it. I do recommend even just checking out some of your videos and stuff that you guys have out there, and some of the articles. It'll give you more feel of what they're doing and an understanding of the value they bring. And honestly, just even it's one of those things where, again, I just felt like when I watched some of the videos, the robots in action, I was like, oh, I really get this now. Like, it's one thing to have it in your mind of like, yeah, robots moving around a restaurant, what's that look like? And then you see it in the practicality of it. You're like, I get it. Like, it feels organic. It works.
Yes. And to that point, if I could add on, BlueStar is trying to up our game in supporting, resellers as well. I mean, we're in the wake of great companies like Bear Robotics, but we've got John Warner on staff now. Yep. We have staff that can help navigate as well. So it's an all-in initiative, and it's a good time for it. So I just wanted to throw that out there today.
Completely agree.
There you go.
All right, let's wrap up as always with What's Tech Connecting with You. This is the fun part of the show where we get to riff on topics in tech, business, science, innovation, whatever we feel like chatting about today. Why don't I let you kick it off? What's Tech Connecting with You right now?
Well, let's riff.
Okay.
I was very fascinated to see what happened with Tesla last weekend.
The robotaxis?
Well, the robotaxis were really impressive, but the humanoids were even unique because it shows you a glimpse of what could be in a matter of years, right? Humanoids at your home, cleaning your dishes, cleaning your kitchen, folding your laundry, watering your plants, walking your dog. Are you ready? Because the way that it was announced was really fascinating in that if they're priced in a way that they can be adopted by the masses,
right.
We're looking at a future that we talked a lot about what robots that we provide are going to be in the workspace, but you may have robots in your home. And so I just found it really fascinating because I thought about like the things that we've perhaps grown up on, whether it's Star Wars or the Jetsons, and they had it right all along.
Yeah.
You know, I actually think about the humanoids as the C-3POs, and I think about the robots that we're making as the R2-D2s, similar to kind of the R2-D2 you have behind you.
Yeah, right.
And that's essentially what was really cool to see because this could be a really, really unique thing to see in terms of the adoption of robots in our everyday lives.
Yeah.
That was fascinating.
Yeah, very fascinating to see the culmination of technology and just the drive to try to get the price point. I think he said $20,000 to $30,000, which isn't cheap, but it's not like outlandish.
I mean,
right?
It's something you could finance like a car, I guess. I could see there being some financing options there. And again, it's one of those things that I'm sure over time will become more affordable as more people adopt and start using them. So, I don't know. We'll see.
What do you think? Could you have one in your home doing a lot of the tasks that you don't like to do?
Let me put it this way. My wife will be the first one that will want to sign up for this. She's always threatening to she's like, when's the robot come along that's going to start cleaning for us? And, and I'm the kind of guy who tries to be as participative as possible around the house. I do almost all the cooking. I'm like, I understand the distribution of labor and what women have had to deal with over the years. And I'm kind of like, all right. I mean, if
you do your role.
Yeah. I'm like, if I'm like, I won't, I'm not looking at this as something to shirk my duties, but honestly, I want the lawnmower robot. I know that's already out there. Like I want that thing that can just go out and clean up the dog poop in the backyard.
Oh, there it is.
Mow the lawn, trim everything up, and just make things look nice.
Right? Yes.
At least on like the super hot. I mean, there's times when it's nice to get outdoors and do the outdoor work. You feel good out there. But on the days where it's super hot or it's getting cold like it is now around here, and you still got to go out and do that stuff, I wouldn't mind having.
I think that's the angle. You got to do the dog cleanup. That's the angle coming out of the. Yeah. I don't know anybody.
There are apparently companies like people. I've seen like little signs around the neighborhood like we'll come clean up your dog poop. I'm like, really? You can do
those are young entrepreneurs.
I guess. I mean, I get it. Like, people don't want to do that, but that's So we'll see. I don't know. It's one of those things I feel like we may not see those in our homes in our lifetime necessarily.
I don't know.
Maybe not. I don't know. But to your point, we're talking about the service robots and senior living. I could see more of that starting to develop there too. Sure. I mean, it's almost like even a companion type thing in some way. Again, this is a perfect example of science fiction concepts that are starting to become very close to reality and may not be as science fiction as we once thought they were.
So 10, 15 years from now, I think it's going to look a lot different. Yeah.
There you go.
I don't know. Maybe we'll all have our, what is it called? What is that, Andrew?
I think it's called the Optimus.
The Optimus. There it is. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Good stuff.
I wonder if Hasbro is, going to get litigious about that one. I guess it was just Optimus, not Optimus Prime.
Yes, right. Yes.
All right, Dean, what's TEConnecting with you right now?
Well, we need power to do all this stuff, and you live out in Silicon Valley, so do you have a small modular nuclear reactor yet in your backyard?
I think those need to be built up throughout the U.S. So hopefully,
well, there you go.
One day.
That's my tech connecting. Big tech goes nuclear. Amazon is investing $500 million towards nuclear power to meet the rising demands out there. And as we all know, Google bought 3 Mile Island. Who knew that was going to be a thing, right? Because we got to power all this stuff. Nuclear power right now is only 19% of U.S. Electrical generation. But AI applications, this will throw you back, are going to account for roughly 10%, it's 9% of total U.S. power consumption by 2030. So in just 6 years, 10% of power that's generated consumed by AI. Yeah. That's why all these companies, so they're going down the road of small nuclear reactors, right? These smaller stations, I guess, that can still do 300 megawatts of power and produce them. I'm all in with you, right? Big tech goes nuclear, great. We just build them everywhere because I think they're safe, right? I mean, sure, there's some risk involved there, but from a clean standpoint,
a little nuclear meltdown in your backyard.
You know, it just tunnels a hole and it burns out eventually. But you know, you're good. Don't worry about it. You're
Dean,
always the doomsayer.
I can't come in the office today. I got a little Chernobyl action going on back here.
We got robots that'll just come by and sweep just clean up the hole.
They pick up the dog poop and they'll pick up your nuclear waste. So,
I can see the Servi Pro, kind of delivering anyway. But we're, I think we're good there. But so anyway, that's fascinating, right? Power is needed. Nuclear's a clean alternative. Yeah, we're going to start seeing these. I don't know if it'll be in your backyard, but I wouldn't be surprised. But obviously the challenges of regulations and all these things, it's kind of like we got to get out of our own way to make this happen type of thing. So we'll see.
Yeah, Juan, if you listen to enough episodes of this podcast, you realize a theme for Dean is anything related to like batteries and power and energy. Like that's his most common tech connectings are almost always related to those particular topics.
Yeah, because we got to power all this stuff, right? It's
That's true.
Where are we going to get all this stuff from?
We're not stopping making stuff that needs power. We're not going back to some old Luddite stuff at this point. So. TEConnect podcast is brought to you by ELO. Designed with versatility in mind, ELO Edge Connect offers a wide assortment of peripheral options. Whether for endless aisles, self-order, or collaboration applications, seamlessly attach any combination of up to 4 peripherals to the edge of an ELO touchscreen to build a customized solution. Add, move, or swap out later as needs change, and your customers have a future-proof solution ideal for any application they can imagine. Temperature sensors, status lights, 3D or conference cameras, barcode scanners, card readers, collaboration tools, payment cradles. If you can't find peripherals to meet any customer's needs, you just aren't trying. To learn more, check out the link in the show notes or contact the BlueStar ELO team.